Okay, maybe he does punch like a 90s pimp. Welcome to Tapping Vegas, brought to you by Better and Green. One more card until we get to UFC 300, and me and Bobby think, little sneak peek, we might be onto something here with this card. We've already been taking Vegas to the sheds. These last 3 weeks, it's been a movie. I'll put it like that. And you know what, Bobby, I haven't said it in a while, but if you want to make cash fast, you don't go to that other trash. Don't go to that other trash. You guys come right here to Tappy Vegas. Bobby, how did we do last week?
Up 1.5 units from last week, 12 overall for this year, and then 45 since the inception of the show. So quick shout outs right quick for a little recap of last week. Cal and Lauren, I know you picked him. I picked against him. Shout out to him. He proved me wrong. Hats off. Great performance. Pacheco, one tough bastard. Yeah. Really great fight. Connor Matthews disappointed us, but that's all right. You know, it happens. Shit happens. We'll let that go.
Yeah.
You know what does make me happy, though? Shout out. Huge shout out. Nate Landwehr. Nate Landwehr. If you're not already on this guy, we've been saying it, especially me. I've been banging this guy's drum for a while, no homo. Nate Landwehr, get on the train, man. Get on the train while you can, because he made us some money last week. And also, Buckley. I know you picked against Buckley. I picked Buckley. Buckley made us some money, though, so shout-outs to Joaquin Buckley. Hope he gets an Anheuser-Busch sponsorship. And then, unfortunately, Blanchfield lost, but, you know, it was kind of a rough fight. And overall, that Atlantic City card, eye poke city. That's the best way to describe that card.
The entire card. Bobby, we had an ugly stretch there for a second. We're still 12-3 all-time versus Vegas, so we're still taking them out. But I believe that's 15.5 units over the past 3 weeks. So, I mean, we're absolutely killing it right now. And we're pretty excited about this card. Do you want to kick us off with this first fight?
Yes, I am so hyped up about this card. You're going to be able to feel the energy on this fight. Excuse me, not this card. I'm not going to lie to you. Not excited about this card. Excuse me misspeaking, but we have Trevor Peek and we have Charlie Campbell. So what gets me so jazzed up about this fight on this card is, let's start with Trevor Peek. All right, Trevor Peek, I was watching this guy, nonstop action. Nonstop action, high energy, definition of that dog in him. Just absolutely insane from like ding one to ding end. Dude just brings it. His fight with Eric Gonzalez was his official UFC debut. That's what instantly made me a fan. The guy was doing crazy Artem Lobov standing hammer fist, just everything he throws. Trevor Peek has reckless abandon and is trying to take your head off with it. But he doesn't headhunt. Another thing I noticed in his fights, he really mixes it up well. Great hip dexterity, great kicks, will instantly go low kick, body kick, high kick, like back to back to back, nonstop, just very smooth, fluid striking. Even though he does, once again, get a little bit reckless with how much he's trying to just take your head off and just put everything into his strikes. They are pretty smooth for the most part. And even with like takedowns, the guy just has high amplitude, like, I fucked that up. High amplitude takedowns is what I'm getting at. Like Kama Worthy, pretty flawless transition from striking on the feet to just picking the guy up and slamming him from hell. It was just an insane fight. And Kama Worthy is a UFC alumni. Fortunately, he's not with the organization anymore, but when he came up to Worthy on the regional scene, he brought it to him from the beginning to the end and just steamrolled the guy, and that was just insane. The guy is just pure action, just nonstop. And, yeah, I'm a big fan of Trevor Peek, very high on the guy, and, yeah, he's got so many stoppage wins. I mean, stoppage wins in the UFC against Eric Gonzalez, as I mentioned. Did drop a unanimous decision to Chepe Mariscal, but then got right back in the win column October last year with the unanimous decision win against Muhammad Yahya. And then other than that, every other fight on the regional scene, like he got his Contender Series contract off a ground and pound finish. the KO TKO of Kama Worthy, like so many strike finishes. The guy has barely made it out of the round. Round 2 is like the latest he's went in a lot of his fights. Just absolutely insane. Charlie Campbell. Here's some funny stuff with Charlie Campbell. Here's where we get a little bit wonky here. Watching his tape, there's not much to go off of from the UFC. He has a UFC win over Alex Reyes, Dominic Reyes's brother. Not sure if he's the older brother or not, but he's Dominic Reyes's brother. I'm not really put too much stock in that because Alex Reyes has been inactive for so long and has had such a very bizarre and short career that I can't really get too much info off of that. And then other than that, don't really honestly kind of know why he's in the UFC. I'm kind of curious as to the origin because he lost his Contender Series fight 2 years ago, and he was on a guy's highlight reel. He was on Chris Duncan's highlight reel for a pretty brutal failed takedown attempt that just he got absolutely his head bashed in by Chris Duncan off of. So that's pretty concerning because Chris Duncan hasn't exactly been too crazy since he's been in the UFC. He just dropped his last fight. But let's get into the meat and potatoes of the issue with Charlie Campbell. My main thing that I was noticing with his regional fights, because that's the majority of what I have to go off of, since once again he only has that Alex Reyes UFC fight, is a lot of grappling. Like his opponents were hell-bent on taking him down for some odd reason, and he was kind of content to just stand, but he would also initiate grappling himself to where it would lead to these weird situations, like case in point, Abdul Rashid, his fight against Abdul Rashid. Last week was a ridiculous card for the UFC with a lot of bizarre shit. This fight was the most bizarre one I've ever seen before in my entire life. Charlie Campbell, Abdul Rashid, seriously, watch it. Watch it on YouTube. It's out there. Combat at the Capitol. Fucking bizarre fight. It was just Abdul Rashid butt scooting around the octagon, chasing Charlie Campbell, but then Charlie Campbell would also kind of honey dick and try to engage instead of letting Abdul Rashid get up, and it was just very bizarre how there'd be times when Charlie Campbell wouldn't want any part of the grappling, but then would initiate the grappling, but then would honey dick. It was just so weird, and it ended, and I still, after rewatching it 4 times, have no idea what the hell happened. It looked like Charlie Campbell had like the clinch on Abdul Rashid and was like trying to put Abdul Rashid's head into the cage and kind of do that cheese grater to it. And I think Abdul Rashid said he quit or like stop or something. And the referee just called the fight. And then it was just so fucking weird. And it's ruled as a KO TKO for him, but he wasn't throwing punches. Campbell wasn't throwing punches or anything. He was just holding Rashid up against the fence, and then I guess Rashid quit. And so the fight was over. Insane. Just very bizarre shit. So all that to say, I mean, there's good things that Charlie Campbell does. The main things I noticed as like his strengths, whereas Peak, I feel like clearly has the striking advantage and the power advantage. Campbell has some really nice hip tosses into scarf holds. That's like something I saw like in 2 of his fights. He really favors a hip toss into a scarf hold. And he had some good success against one of these Kazakhstan dudes. I think it was either Kazanov or Edward Chechian or whatever. One of those guys, he had really good success with that to the point where it looked like the Kazakh guy had the grappling edge, but then Campbell instantly was able to turn it against him and get a good win against those guys when it looked like he was getting his ass kicked in the grappling. He kind of seems like a grappling glass cannon in some ways to me, where if he's not taking you down or engaging in like the clinch, he's very susceptible to being taken down and being put in the clinch. And yeah, early opponents, for whatever reason, were hell-bent on grappling him. I guess they thought he was primarily a striker. But here's how I see this fight going. Once again, Trevor Peak, I feel, has the power advantage. He has the strike advantage. He has fluid strikes. He does body shots, kicks, punches, you name it. I think that this is going to be a fight that might end very similar, unfortunately, for Charlie Campbell to how his Dana White's Contender Series fight ended. He's going to be trying to get the takedown on Peak, and Peak is just going to take his head off, and he's going to get the KO TKO finish. I'm just really worried that Campbell has no urgency on his takedowns and does not put himself in secure positions. He throws caution to the wind with his head placement and shit like that, which is how he got finished on the Contender Series. And he's very prone to getting blasted in the first round like he did against Chris Duncan. And once again, Trevor Peek barely makes it to the second round. He usually ends fights in the first for the majority of his career. I think Peek comes out hot, swinging for the fences, overwhelms Campbell. Campbell shoots a takedown, tries to buy himself some time, puts himself in a compromising position. Peek hammers away at him, gets the finish. And odds right now, Peek at plus 150, Campbell at minus 180, and that KO TKO for Peek at plus 215. I'm seeing some cash registers like breaking open on this one. What do you think, Ben?
Pete Campbell's my Nuck If You Buck fight of the night. You know, when I was doing my research for Duncan, I think I ended up picking him also. I saw that Charlie Campbell knockout. I thought, holy shit, this guy's like really good. And then he went out and got subbed by Manuel Torres in 1:46 and just got completely dominated. Now I realize that was not Chris Duncan being that good. That was Charlie Campbell being that bad. He's got no chin, which is part of what you're saying with the head placement. I don't think his grappling's that great, and I think he gets frozen on defense. He will start trying to predict and stop trying to attack, and then at some point he just he freezes, and you're able to get an extra shot on him, which for a guy like Trevor Peek, I think he's going to have the intensity to bring it. If he can get knocked out by Duncan in the first round, he can absolutely get knocked out by Peek. This one is very, very reminiscent to me of last week's. We just talked about him in the opener. Nate Landwehr.
There we go, yeah.
It reminds me so much of that one. These odds are almost exactly the same, too. They were like 180 to 150. Trevor Peek, okay, maybe he does punch like a 90s pimp, but I like Peek. I like Peek in this one also. You're looking at the money split. It makes me a little nervous. It's about 55-45 split. So the people are seeing this one pretty evenly, which once again kind of leads more credence to why is this such a huge gap in this fight. 81% of the money, however, though, is on Campbell, 19 for Peek. So you're seeing a lot of sharp money come in on Campbell, but Vegas, they always win. And what would the best case scenario be? Best case scenario for Vegas would probably be taking that 81% of the money and paying out that 19% at a plus 150, which minus 180, that's a horrible return, but plus 150, that's really not great. That's really not great, and that's because they're hedging, because they know that Peek can take this. So I'm with you. I'm on Peek on the money line.
Yeah, I'm trying not to gush too much over Peek. I'm trying not to let that bias come into play, and I'm also trying not to get too much of an erection at these odds and how people are kind of asleep at the wheel yet again.
Yeah.
But gosh damn, man, I can't lie. Watching those Trevor Peek videos and those highlights and his fights on the regional scene, man, made me want to like stand up and punch the shit out of my TV. It was just insane, man. Just so much energy, just high energy, just exciting guy. And once again, last thing I'll say about before I beat a dead horse, I don't get how Campbell is such a heavy favorite with one actual UFC fight against Dominic Reyes' brother, who's just been so inactive, has like lost 3 fights in a row now, I think, and is basically just a word away from saying, hey, I'm done. I'm retired. You know, all he has to do is say the word. Nobody bat an eye. And a lot of people would forget, honestly, sadly, that he's ever even been in the UFC. And I just don't get what they're seeing that I'm not, but hey, I'm taking advantage.
Trevor Peek also has the jawline to compete with Drew Dober.
He does have a pretty nice jawline. Dude has, once again, no homosexual, but, pretty decent looking guy.
Let's talk about Valter Walker versus Lukasz Brzeski. Valter Walker, this is Johnny Walker's brother. Dude's a striker, undefeated, but this is his first UFC fight. He comes in, he runs forward with that chin up, boy. I mean, he's begging to get chinned. Can Lukasz Brzeski do it? I say no. Lukasz, 841, poor defense. The dude doesn't excel anywhere. Eats huge hits, and like the word you love to use, he's very well-meaning. Like, you saw pictures of him, and there's like pictures of him ripped, and then there's pictures of him looking a little flabby. The flabby version is the one that we're getting. I don't know how old those other pictures are, but I mean, I don't understand. I don't understand this guy. When I was watching his tape, it just made no sense to me. Valter, he might run forward with his chin up. He might have sloppy technique. He hasn't faced anybody. He gasses. He has good takedowns, and I think that's going to be enough. I really think that's going to be enough. Also, this one, heavyweight fight, I don't think this goes the distance. It's an Apex card heavyweight fight. This isn't going the distance. I'm going Valter Walker. It's at minus 278. Let's see what the double method for a finish would be for him. If we're looking at KO sub double method, that would be, wow, plus 100. Plus 100 for a Walker knockout sub. I'm taking it. And I'm running. What do you think, Bobby?
You pretty much did the heavy lifting for me on this one. We're coming off peak and Campbell, how hyped we were for that. Now we're getting the air sucked out of the room with this next fight. Once again, not to be a dead horse, try and keep this brief. Yeah, brothers are coming back in this card. We talked about Alex Reyes, Dominic Reyes, Johnny Walker, Valter Walker. Yeah, you pretty much hit the nail on the head. First thing I saw with Valter Walker, a lot of takedowns for a heavyweight.
Yes.
Not saying he's Daniel Cormier, for Christ's sake, but, Daniel Cormier has a lot of takedowns in heavyweight. And other than that, you don't really see too many takedowns. But, yeah, I was shocked. I thought being, Johnny Walker's brother, break dancing and elbows are on the menu. A lot of takedowns. How that plays a role in this fight against Brzeski. I've seen Brzeski, when I was doing my research on him, give up his back a lot. Every single fight that I watched of his, multiple instances of him giving up his back. And even though the whole shake-off method, if the guy's too high up on you to get him off, does work and is viable, he needs to use a method that he's not using, which is stand up, his hands on their hands, try to break the grip and turn out. That's the most effective way. He does not do that at all. And if he can't shake off, he's going to continue to get taken down. He puts himself in positions where I believe one of the fights of his I watched, because he couldn't get the guy off of him, he almost got omoplotted by the guy. Brzeski almost got omoplotted. So, yeah, that pretty much says it all. Yes, Valter does strike, and he is sloppy. But, I mean, there's nothing really about his striking that makes it any better or any worse than any other heavyweight. That's pretty much heavyweight MMA in a nutshell when it comes to striking. Sloppy, wild, chin on the air. If you don't get knocked out, you're getting knocked out or you're gassing, and it's going to be disgusting to watch. But, yeah, the X factor 100% I think is going to be the takedowns based off how much Valter does like to initiate grappling and does like to make use of that, and how much Brzeski is constantly susceptible to being taken down and to giving up his back. So, yeah, plus 100 KO TKO sub. I love it because that's going to be bread and butter for Valter. And to answer your question about how perplexing Brzeski is, here's a little bit of fun trivia for you. So Brzeski, yeah, very hot and cold, weird, streaky guy. I pride myself on knowing a lot of unconventional, weird, out there fighters that are kind of lesser known that are in the UFC. Didn't even know the guy was in the UFC. I thought this was going to be like his debut, maybe his second fight. He's been in the UFC. Yeah. He got a Contender Series contract in 2021, back to his physique. Do you know why that Contender Series win was overturned to a no contest? Because originally he won and got a contract. Brzeski did. Pissed hot for clomiphene, a performance-enhancing drug.
That's why he's not jacked anymore.
Right, because he pissed hot, and now he can't be on the good shit anymore. I mean, maybe now since USADA's gone, but that's a different story. Anyway, served his suspension, came back August 2022, split decision loss, Martin Boudet. March last year, Carl Williams, going back to the grappling, Carl Williams hurt the dude on the feet, had him rocked, and then suplexed the ever-loving shit out of him. So how he didn't get the finish was actually surprising, which is the only thing that gives me concern about the finish double method is Brzeski is pretty durable, actually. To get rocked like that in the striking and then suplexed from hell by Carl Williams and not finished, I got to admit, that was pretty impressive. But he is coming off August last year, a round one loss to hooks from Waldo Cortez Acosta. So it is possible it was just done in his last fight. So, yeah, that plus 100, I'm hoping and praying that it doesn't go the distance because God help us once again, as I always say, with heavyweight MMA, especially with two guys this sloppy and untechnical, it's going to be disgusting if it does. So
I kind of like, sometimes I don't like playing guys that are making their debut, but I feel like, especially at heavyweight, you need like every ounce of effort that you're going to get out of somebody. He's going to come in here. He's going to try to be level-headed. How are you not amped your first fight in the big leagues? I think he's going to come with just that little extra juice. If we're looking at it from the Vegas aspect, this is split at about 2/3 to a third. 66% of the money is on Valter, or 66% of the bets, excuse me, and 73% of the money is on Valter. So when he's such a high favorite, this is one of those that Vegas, they're going to set it up high, so when they have to pay out, they pay out low and then just steal all the money on the other side. So I feel like, once again, we're on the right side of Vegas here.
yeah, he's a pretty heavy favorite. He's one of the highest. He's one of the biggest favorites at minus 238 money line right now to plus 195 Lukasz. And when I first saw that, I was wondering what the fuck was up, and thinking I could be a little cheeky, but no. After watching Lukasz and watching Valter, once again, we say it a lot on this show, and then I'll move on, but these aren't guys that are going to be, well, fuck, it's heavyweight. Maybe they will. All right, I'll hold off on saying they won't be top 15. It's heavyweight. It's so damn shallow. Who knows? So scratch that.
Well, let's move on to the fight that I think is actually the biggest odds on the card. So, Bobby, why don't you take it away?
Yeah, this is another good one on this card that's relatively lackluster. Ignacio Bahamondes versus Christos Giagos. Ignacio's coming in as a very heavy minus 340 favorite. Christos is a plus 270. Can't get too cheeky on this one and try to, act a little bit crazy on this because Giagos, this is actually his second UFC run. When I was watching his tape, I was like, damn, this guy was fighting back in the sponsored shorts still had the sponsors era and everything. Yeah. How long has he been in the UFC? And he had a run in 2014 and 2015. Then he got cut, had to work his way back. And it was a long road back for Christos until 2018, made his way back into the UFC. And he's just been very spotty guy. Lost his last fight September last year. I believe we covered this. Lost to Daniel Zellhuber by Anaconda choke. Beat Ricky Glenn before that. Had a grappling match with some guy. I'm not even going to try to fucking pronounce his name. And then dropped Thiago Moises and Armin Sarukian. No shame to losing to those two guys and getting finished by them in round one. But still, you got finished in round one by both of those guys. And in your last four fights, your four actual UFC fights, not counting that grappling match, you only have one win and 3 losses, and that is very concerning. He's also getting up there. Well, actually, he's not, but he has a lot of miles. He's not that old. He's only 34, but he has a lot of wear and tear. 20-11, been fighting since 2010 when he had his pro debut, and, yeah, he's just not exactly the best guy, unfortunately. I mean, not to diss him, not to have any disrespect, but everybody has a place in the UFC. Not everybody can be champion. Not everybody can be top 15. But I just think his second run is unfortunately about to come to an end if he drops this. He's a prime cut candidate. And I just don't really see a path to him winning this against Ignacio Bahamondes. The only thing that gives me pause and would make me, if you really were just hell-bent on choosing Christos, is he does shoot a lot of takedowns. He does try to get his grappling going, Because let's face it, if he tries to make this a pure striking match with Ignacio, he's definitely going to lose. His best chance is to try to incorporate some of those takedowns in and try to be a little bit sneaky with those and test the grappling of Bahamondes, because any other way, he's going to lose a decision or he's going to get knocked out. Now, with that being said, we know that Bahamondes is the way superior striker. The grappling's the only thing that gives me a little bit of pause, but here's something to kind of take the edge off how much of a favorite he is, since I am picking Bahamondes on this, is I'm curious what it would be like for a double for KO, TKO, or sub for Bahamondes.
KO or sub is at -120.
Oh, fuck. That's not as good as I thought it would be, because Bahamondes by sub alone is plus 380. But here's my thing with that. Quick explanation of why I would like to have sub in there. So I just saw, it wasn't his last fight, because unfortunately his last fight he lost the unanimous decision to Ludovic Klein, Bahamondes did. But when I was watching his fight against Rong Zhu, Bahamondes got the round 3 Bravo choke win off a shitty sloppy takedown that Rong Zhu was shooting on him. So I was kind of wondering if that was a possibility with Giagos in this fight, because Giagos isn't exactly shooting textbook takedowns here. He kind of is just wildly kind of charging in, trying to use that momentum and that pressure to get the takedown rather than some type of technique or leverage or whatever. So that's kind of the most difficult part for me on this, is if you go Bahamondes KO TKO by itself, it's plus 140. If you go him by sub, it's plus 380. I see both as very likely, especially since Giagos does have so many miles and has been finished before. I definitely could see it. He's definitely been finished by strikes and sub, and he does get sloppy. It's just tough choosing between the two, but I guess I'll say sub for the plus 380 to take the edge off. What are you thinking?
Man, Giagos, dangerous knees, wants to ground and pound, so he is not afraid to take it to the ground, but got subbed by Daniel Zellhuber, man. The whitest not white guy in the world.
Yeah.
Call back to our last episode. But when I'm looking at Zellhuber, one of the things I think about him is he's a long rangey guy who he can get the sub. And that's exactly what we got here with Ignacio. He's got the 4-inch reach advantage, younger, really smooth. I think he's got all aspects to his game. He has very good accuracy, which I feel like results in those precision knockouts versus power knockouts. And A-level kicks, I almost put elite kicks. I don't think that they're quite there, but they are very high level type kicks that he has. I think I'll play it safe. I'll go with the sub knockout combo. I mean, I really think Bahamondes should win this. Baja Blast should win this. We're looking at 95% of the bets, 95% of the money. So, I mean, this guy, he's going to win. It's at over minus 300. I feel like just to get rid of that, you're going to have to knock out one of the methods, and I guess the method on knockout would be decision. I think that's the best way to go about it.
Yeah, that's where I'm at. I can't disagree with that at all, because he's been finished in like his last, like I said, he's won one, lost the last 3, 2 of those come by round 1 finish. He's pretty much prime to be finished. Unfortunately, it's just trying to figure out which way, when I can see both being very likely, since he is a guy that for whatever reason is just hell-bent on shooting takedowns that he probably shouldn't. That's just the most difficult part, is trying to figure that out for sure.
Yeah. And like if you put Zellhuber and Bahamondes in a cage, I think Ignacio's better. So if he's getting subbed by Zellhuber, I have to go Ignacio.
That'd be a good fight next. Bahamondes and Zellhuber.
We might see it. Ignacio has to win this fight. Going to the next fight, we got Alexander Hernandez versus Damon Jackson. This is a really, really weird fight, in my opinion. Alexander Hernandez, he starts fast. he can't be the nail in the fight. He has to be the one taking it to you. And if he can't run you over, then I feel like he loses. He's very one-dimensional. He can be hesitant with his hands. Look at Damon Jackson, the dude. He's just like he is a sub artist, but his chin is gone, and he can get flatlined way easier than I would like. He can get reckless at times, but I mean, he's as tough as they come. He beat Pat Sabatini. You're getting him at plus 170. I'm going with Damon Jackson, dude. And he was even saying in the pressers that he thinks Alexander Hernandez, he's cocky, man. Like, I want to beat this guy. I want to humble him a bit. I think he can. I'm not going to get the fact that Damon Jackson got hair plugs because he was balding super young. I'm not going to hold that against him.
The glow up real.
The glow up is real, man. It's crazy how good looking you can be when you have money.
No shit.
But looking at this fight, he's getting 36% of the bets, only 20% of the money. A lot of people are going on the younger, the more hyped guy, Alexander Hernandez. I just feel like this is a time, once again, kind of like the fight we were talking about with Peak. Just everybody's kind of sleeping on the one guy, and they're going with the hype of the other. What do you think?
Yeah, once again, you did the heavy lifting for me on this. Not much I can disagree with. I just don't know if I can agree with you on the outcome. I'm still actively wrestling with it in my head as I'm speaking right now. Yeah, Hernandez, I'm looking at his record again, and I really get fed up of people saying ignorant, weird, cringe, secondhand embarrassment shit like Fighter A took Fighter B's soul. Yeah. And like the main example is Rory and Robbie Lawler, and Robbie took Rory's soul. And it's like, you do realize both of them, like their careers both started to go down after that fight, you know, Lawler won like maybe one more fight after that immediately, maybe two, he got the championship, but his career wasn't that much better than McDonald's after that fight. So I don't really like saying that, but it's kind of hard with Hernandez to disagree after that Cerrone fight in 2019. Cerrone really just humbled the kid because he was coming out like a bat out of hell with a lot of momentum, beating sleepers like dark horses of the division like Olivier Aubin-Mercier. Round one, huge knockout over Beneil Dariush. Obviously, we know Beneil Dariush and what he's done over the years since 2018 when they fought. I know that there was controversy over that because of the whole fake glove touch thing. But, yes. I mean, he beat those two guys, and then right after that, his third fight was Cerrone. Classic example of talked a great game, won the press conference, won the face-off, the weigh-ins, the stare-downs, all that shit, but then guys ass-handed to him in the actual fight. And then he's just been so skittish ever since because he has 4 wins and 5 losses since that time. So he's got 4 wins, 5 losses since 2019 when he faced Donald Cerrone, and his wins have not exactly been against top-tier talent. And I hate MMA math, but beating Francisco Trinaldo, I don't even think Francisco fights anymore. I think he's retired. Chris Gritzmacher, he had a lot of hype in 2016, but damn sure not 2020 when he lost in round 1 to Alexander Hernandez, and he's not even in the UFC anymore, and Mike Breeden. And Jim Miller, yeah, that was actually a good win February last year. Jim Miller is actually proving he's got longevity, and he's a tough old vet that, you know, he's still got some gas in the tank. So that was actually good, but that's your best win. It's still not impressive to say your best win in 2023 in your last 9 fights damn near was Jim Miller. That's not really moving the needle for me. It's just tough because Jackson is coming off back-to-back losses, finished by a left hook in round 2 by Dan Ige, the unanimous decision loss August last year to Billy Quarantillo. That's the only thing that's giving me pause. This is a very tough fight. It's very, very tough to predict. Once again, I'll say it again. Giant douche turd sandwich. Gun to my head. Alexander Hernandez plus 120 KO TKO.
At least I can agree with the method. If you're going to go with him, I can agree with the method.
Yeah, because if it goes to decision, I think it's because Hernandez is probably losing.
Yeah. Yep. Going on to the main event. It's been kicking our asses, but it's been kicking all the favorites' asses. Bobby, underdogs in the 11 main events in 2024 have won 7 of the 11 fights.
I'm glad you're keeping track because that actually gives me a lot more confidence in my pick for this.
Take it away.
All right, thank you. Chris Curtis versus Brendan Allen. This is actually a rematch. These two have already faced each other once before, and here's some more fun stuff about this. So a big narrative going into this fight is Chris Curtis has the KO TKO win over Brendan Allen when they first met each other. Fun fact, Chris Curtis trains at Extreme Couture out of Las Vegas, Nevada, with Eric Nixick as his coach, and who's one of his main sparring partners, Sean Strickland.
Yep.
Sean Strickland also has a win over Brendan Allen by KO TKO.
Yep.
So huge narrative coming into this fight, and Brendan Allen has even made notice of it and brought it up going into the first fight with Chris Curtis, to the point where he got relentlessly trolled by Curtis and Strickland because Brendan Allen was trying to say that he was public enemy number 1 at Extreme Couture, to which Chris Curtis, before the first fight, responded, "Nobody's worried about you and nobody even knows who the hell you are." So that's got to be pretty debilitating mentally to go into a fight with a guy who's already KO TKO'd you. His main training partner and sparring partner has already KO TKO'd you. Their coaches have already spent all this time preparing for you twice now. This would be the third time that their team goes up against you after all this game planning, all this preparation, these 2 wins they have over you. And all that being said, that's why I'm a little surprised that Allen is such a heavy favorite at minus 218 and Chris Curtis is at a plus 180. Now, I know what you're thinking. Chris Curtis isn't exactly a world beater. He's another guy who's very streaky, very hot and cold, et cetera, et cetera. But here's my line of thinking. Here's some food for thought with this. So Brendan Allen's trying to say that the KO TKO Chris Curtis has over him is a fluke. I kind of disagree because after watching that fight again, what I saw when I watched that fight was I saw Chris Curtis pressuring the hell out of Brendan Allen, constantly had him up against the fence. Brendan Allen did not try to circle out. And when he did, he took his sweet-ass time trying to circle out, get back to the middle, and regain his distance. He constantly was just not aware that his back was to the fence, and Chris Curtis capitalized on that pretty damn well with body shots, head shots, mixing up the shots very well, choosing them carefully, using the right amount of power on him, pulling the power when he felt like he didn't have a good shot, really doing a very surgical damn near breakdown of Brendan Allen. And some things that kind of give me pause in thinking that Brendan Allen can pull this off in the rematch. He has a blueprint. His blueprint is he needs to do exactly what Jack Hermansson did. And he was doing a little bit of it in the first fight with Chris Curtis. Brendan Allen was. He was throwing the body kick that Chris Curtis is prone to on, I believe it's the left side. Curtis is a sucker for that left body kick. It's always there. So he was throwing it. He was half-ass throwing the high kick that he's also susceptible to. So I think Brendan Allen can take the rematch if he is just like Hermansson. Hermansson was dedicated to not staying up against the cage. As soon as he had the realization that he was up against the cage, immediately damn near running to get off the cage. That's what you need to do against Chris Curtis. You cannot let Chris Curtis come forward on you and back you up because he's going to tee off on you. And he was throwing damn near nothing but kicks, constant calf kicks. Brendan Allen needs to do the calf kick. That heavy boxing stance that Chris Curtis has leaves him very susceptible to calf kicks. Brendan Allen hardly threw the calf kick. More body kicks. Spam the body kick. Once he gets used to the body kick, he starts trying to block that. Then you go up high and you set up the high kick. and that keeps him guessing. He doesn't know whether it's going to be a body kick or a high kick, and you can try to get a finish that way. I think a key to this is a 5-round main event. I saw Brendan Allen getting tired in that first fight because of all the body shots Chris Curtis was throwing. It was a war of attrition, and he's got an extra 2 rounds to work with. And if he starts teeing off on Allen with those body shots like he was in the first fight, he's going to get tired a lot faster, and it's going to be a repeat of the first fight. So Allen really needs to take all those pages out of Hermansson's book. Don't let himself get pressured against the cage. Throw as many kicks as he can, especially way more calf kicks, way more body kicks. Mix up the head kick with the body kick. Keep them guessing. And the grappling, he's got like 4 back-to-back-to-back rear naked choke wins right now, Brendan Allen does. But I'm concerned because when he tried to do the grappling exchanges against Chris Curtis, it actually really bit him in the ass. There was one point at the end of the round, I think it was round 2 or 1, I can't remember, where Allen couldn't really get the takedown, so he fell back to threaten an ankle lock, and he ended up getting reversed, and the round ended with Curtis on top of him for the majority of it. So, Curtis won off control time alone based off that. And the only other takedown attempt that Allen shot, Curtis pretty much got back up to his feet, no problem. So I feel like that's his main way to win is through grappling, and I just don't know that he's going to be able to get the grappling off on Chris Curtis, because I get the first fight was 2021, so it's been a few years now, but I don't know how much can change in terms of his takedowns and everything to be able to get Curtis down. I think it's still primarily he's going to be forced into a position where it's going to be a striking battle. And he's just got so much he has to do to radically change his game plan that I don't know. I don't know if he's going to be able to make those changes and be able to stick to them, especially once he does start getting pressured. It's going to be very telling in the first round how he handles that pressure, and if he has a repeat of the first fight and doesn't adapt to it, or if he doesn't throw those kicks, because I don't think he's going to be able to rely on the threat of his takedown. Hermansson was able to, because he was able to stay off the fence and use all those kicks, but I don't know if Allen's going to do that. I think Allen's just going to kind of get desperate at times, and especially if he's getting tired over the course of 5 rounds and he's getting winded with those body shots, I just don't like the odds. And it's a very tough fight. It's extremely tough, but Allen at minus 218, Curtis at plus 180, and Allen by subs only at 175, plus 175. Curtis by KO TKOs at plus 300. I'm not a Curtis fan at all, and I bitched about him a lot recently with how ridiculous he's been in his fights and how shit like the Jack Hermansson fight happens to him, and he just doesn't have an answer other than to throw a temper tantrum. But then he also has fights like, where he brutalizes Brendan Allen, one of the young, bright prospects in the middleweight division. And he's just so damn hard to get a read on. But to wrap it up, sure, Chris Curtis, plus 180. I don't think it goes to decision, because if it goes to decision, he's going to lose anyway. I don't think he's going to get the sub. So I think he gets another KO TKO. I just think it's going to be really hard for Allen to adapt to what he brings to the table, especially with all the time and preparation his team's had for Allen. They definitely have a leg up in that. Plus 300 KO TKO Chris Curtis. What do you think, Ben?
I don't disagree with a single thing you said. And isn't it so bad that when we say that, we know something bad's coming?
I know, man.
I 100% agree.
And it's hard. It is a hard fight.
It is. I'm looking at it, and you're absolutely right. They have the game plan. The coaches, the fighters themselves. Strickland's knocked him out. Curtis has knocked him out. Now we're coming in. Curtis is the heavy underdog. That doesn't seem to make a lot of sense. Chris Curtis just lost to Gastelum, which was kind of a weird fight to me. I can't believe he lost to Gastelum.
Yeah, it's the crazy shit like that.
Yeah. He's got some slow feet. Where I'm looking at Brendan Allen, he'll stand and bang. He wants to get the takedowns, though. He could win on the ground. He's got great movement. And now I know I'm really looking at this from the Vegas standpoint. So you got Chris Curtis that already has the win. He's coming in as a huge underdog. And everybody knows about how him and Sean Strickland are buddies and how they both have wins over him. But you're making him at a plus 180, and then the public is 61% of bets, 84% of the money. So you're telling me that Vegas is choosing to pay out 84% of the money of the bets at almost 2 times. I know that the public took Vegas to the cleaners with this March Madness. Right here is another perfect example where they could do the same thing. Whereas if Allen wins, that's 16% of the money that you're paying out at a 2-to-1 price. Vegas knows something, and I feel like Allen. I don't know. We see the line too. It's at 2.5. So we looked at the last 2 fights, 4.5, both went over. And then I think the one before that was 1.5. And who was that? That was Tuivasa Tybura. Under 1.5. It didn't even get past the first. Now we got this one. This is a 2.5 line. So Vegas is expecting this not to go the distance. I don't expect this to go the distance. But how? Does Curtis get the knockout or does Allen finish it? It's just so weird. I have to go with Allen. And I think Allen just overall, in general, I think Allen is the better fighter. He's a more well-rounded fighter. But, God, he just keeps getting knocked out by these guys. And you and me, neither of us are big Chris Curtis fans. I like Brendan Allen quite a bit, but he gets in the cage. And like you said, he was trying to say that Chris Curtis knockout was fluky. I disagree also. He got caught. And that happens when you're against guys like this. And so if he can stay out of trouble, I want to say Brendan Allen's sub, but they don't give you very good odds on that. Brendan Allen's sub is a plus 175. So if I would rather not pigeonhole myself. Maybe he catches Curtis. Maybe it goes to decision. I'd rather just get the 2-to-1 payout with the other 38% of people. Put my money in the smaller pool.
Hey, I respect you for going with Allen. Yeah, I don't disagree. You're not the first person. I was watching Sean Brady and Joe Pfeiffer apparently have a podcast called Brady Bags together or something. My only beef is they don't give you too much information, but that's like basically their only explanation for why they thought Allen was going to win was he's the better fighter. And once again, I don't disagree at all that Brendan Allen is definitely the better fighter. But what's more MMA than the better fighter not always winning? Sometimes that happens. A lot of the times that happens. And
it's already happened.
Yeah, it's happened a lot. Like on paper, I guess in theory, Blanchfield was supposed to be the better fighter than Manon, and we see how that turned out. Like crazy shit happens. Everybody thought Hernandez, going back to the Cowboy fight, was the better, younger, hype fighter. What happened there? So, yeah, it's just my whole thing is I don't think it was a fluke because what I saw was a game plan. I saw a game plan of Chris Curtis pressuring the hell out of Brendan Allen, denying his takedowns, easily reversing his takedowns, taking advantage of what is supposed to be Allen's strength, using it against him, forcing Allen to stand up with him, and then using those body shots to set up a war of attrition, which the body shot led to the finish. And I just think that's so many obstacles for Brendan Allen to overcome. And like you said, with him trying to really get the sub or, standing and banging is not an option with Chris Curtis. And I believe this is still at the apex with the smaller cage and less room to work with, instantly less room to maneuver, instantly going to get pressed against the cage. If he can do it, which it's not hard to do, which is why I can't believe he didn't do it in the first place in the first damn fight.
Right.
Shout out to, I'm going to look him up right fast because they deserve a shout out. This is the second time I've mentioned this. Chris Curtis can't turn right. If that's why Jack Hermanson had success against him, he can't follow you when the stance is an off stance with his opponent. He just refuses to follow you. He can't keep track. And he will just let you turn around and run away from him, and all he does is just bitch about it. And it's so easy to use against him. I don't know why Brendan Allen didn't, but Fight Figures. That's the podcast. Fight Figures, Chris Curtis, and the plight of turning right. And I just really hope Brendan Allen can do it, but I'm not going to pick that he will because he didn't do it the first time,
Right.
and it was so easy. So
I like I said, I can't hit on anything that you said that's not correct. So absolutely. We started off great, and then as the show went on, we got derailed and started joining other sides. But I like that, though. I like that. We have conviction with our picks. Bobby, I think it's time for a haymaker, man. What's caught your eye that has some pretty nice odds?
there's actually some pretty good stuff on this card, even though the card overall is lackluster. So we're going to have a good little haymaker. Let me go back and check what I might be interested in for the haymaker. So I'm not really too crazy about Hernandez, Jackson odds. We both went, well, no, we split on that. You went Jackson, I went Hernandez. I'm still not crazy on the odds on that, though, regardless. Not crazy about Bahamondes, Giagos. It's not bad for Valter Walker, but gosh damn, I really don't want to put my money on a heavyweight fight to not go the distance because that's when my ass end up watching a 15-minute disgusting, sloppy Jello wrestling bullshit. So I'm going to stay away from that. And it's between Chris Curtis and Peak. And if I'm being honest and transparent, the only thing that's turning me off from the Chris Curtis haymaker is I picked him before, and he's burned my ass. So I have that negative connotation with him burning me before with the Barriot fight, I think, Marc-Andre Barriot. So instead, I'm going to do what I like to defer to, and I'm going to go with one of my boys. I'm going to go with one of my boys like I did Nate Landwehr, like I did JDM, and I regret not doing with Taporia. And I'm going to go with that Trevor Peak KO TKO at plus 215. I'm going to go with that as my haymaker.
I love that pick, Bobby. Everything else before we get out of here?
No, just follow us on socials. I've been going nuclear on Twitter lately, so definitely want to follow along for that. I've been really in my bag on the Twitter game. And, yeah, not exactly the best card in the whole damn world, but how many weeks have we been saying that? It's just kind of you got to grin and bear it. And, hey, hopefully Trevor Peak comes through and he'll be the bright spot of a otherwise very dull and desperate need of shining UFC card.
Absolutely. Now that we're almost at UFC 300, once that's over, we're going to start getting better fights again. They front-loaded the schedule, and we've just kind of been dragging these last couple weeks. Now that all these guys that have been headliners are going to be done with 300, we can start getting better cards again. So make sure you guys tune in for next week. And you know what? There's too many good fights to only do 5. So we're going to have more fights, more content for you guys coming out for UFC 300. I mean, how could you not with that card? It's going to be amazing. And guys, make sure you head over to bettergreen.com so you guys can read some of our articles. I'll have some more UFC premium plays over there, guys. It's only $1, $5, $10 to join. And you get to read half of it for free. Most of our articles are for free. So make sure you guys head out over there. Check out our other shows on Better and Green. We've got Getting Technical. We've got just a few episodes left for college basketball. Dropping Dimes, the NBA show. And we've got 5-Minute Wager, the hockey show. With the NHL playoffs coming up real soon. So make sure you guys tune into those. And guys, please hit that like button and subscribe. It helps us out. It helps get our content out to more people. We appreciate you guys watching. And we will see you guys in the next episode. Peace, guys.
Peace.
You better start listening to the Better and Green podcast. You will not regret it. Trust me, trust me, trust me. And hey, I'm Dean Blandino.
Welcome, welcome, welcome to Better and Green, eh? To Better and Green, eh? To Better and Green, eh? Listen in and cash out. That's what it's all about. Come on, let's make cash now. We always on spot and we cover all spots from the bottom to the top. Hey, shout out to Ethan, shout out to Wyatt, shout out to Ben. Welcome, welcome to our podcast. Better and Green.